Welcome to Visualisation, Improved Performance Through Mental Rehearsal. I'm Jeffrey Hodges. This cassette is the 8th in a series of Sportsmind audio cassettes on mental conditioning and emotional training for improved sports performance. The information contained on this cassette and on the others in the Sportsmind series will provide you with practical skills and techniques that you can use now to significantly improve your sports performances. No matter what your sport is, the skills of the Sportsmind will help you get more out of your game and out of yourself. If you're serious about playing to a higher standard in your sport, then I also strongly recommend attending a Sportsmind workshop or, better still, a Sportsmind holiday training program. These workshops and holiday camps allow you to experience all the Sportsmind techniques and skills firsthand and apply them in practice to your sport. For information on Sportsmind workshops or Sportsmind holidays, or if you'd like to obtain further Sportsmind tapes, please contact me at the address provided on the label of this cassette. Finally, as with all the Sportsmind tapes, Side A of this tape provides a spoken summary of a key area of mental conditioning, while Side B comprises a practical sports improvement, relaxation and visualization exercise. Obviously, it's suggested that for safety's sake you don't listen to Side B while driving a car or doing anything else that might require your full attention. Secondly, as with all the Sportsmind tapes, I suggest that you listen to this tape a minimum of 6 times at spaced intervals. Research has shown that most people forget over half of everything they hear today within 24 hours and only remember 2% of what they heard a week later unless they re-listen or involve themselves in the listening in an active way. So please do involve yourself actively in listening to this material. I've provided stop and think pauses at regular intervals, and I encourage you to stop the tape at these places and think about how what I've just spoken about relates to you and your sport. Doing this will allow you to personalize the knowledge and practical techniques to your sports situations. So now, look forward to 60 minutes of Sportsmind instruction that will positively enhance your sports performances. Positive visualization. Visualization is a common skill we all use all the time. To achieve anything, to do anything, we first see ourselves doing it. So visualization is not something strange or difficult, but something we all constantly use in order to function in the world. We all can visualize. The trouble is, most people use visualization negatively. They imagine all the bad things that could happen and then hope they don't. The important thing to realize is that we human beings are a lot like guided missiles. We move in the direction of our regular and consistent thoughts and imaginings. We move toward what we picture in our mind, particularly what we picture with vividness and strong feeling. Whenever we associate a vivid picture with a strong feeling, it has a magnetic attraction to us. So be careful of what you picture with feeling, because you will be pulled in that direction. A classic example of this process in action in sport is given by the golfer, teed up to hit over a water trap. As he prepares to hit the ball, an image comes to his mind of the last time he played this hole, when he topped the ball and it flew into the water. As he pictures this memory, he sees it vividly, and he even remembers seeing the smirks on his playing partners' faces and hears again their derogatory comments. And of course he feels again the embarrassment he experienced then. He then tells himself, "Now I don't want to go in the water again." But of course it's too late. He's already programmed himself to do just that. As he addresses the ball, he tenses up because he's afraid of failing, and again tops the ball and watches with dismay as it flies straight into the water. Why did this happen? Despite all his verbal commands to himself not to hit into the water, he did just that. Has anything like that ever happened to you? Have you ever commanded yourself not to do something only to find it happening despite all your conscious efforts? Maybe you've said to yourself, "Now this time I'm not going to get nervous and stammer when I present the talk." And yet you did. Why? Self 1 and Self 2. There's a wonderful book by Tim Galway called The Inner Game of Tennis, and in it he talks about the concept of our two selves. Tim Galway was a tennis coach, and he noticed people talking to themselves on the court, and from this he suggested that we actually have two selves. Self 1 is the conscious telling self, and it's the part of us that's always telling us to keep your wrist firm, watch the ball, follow through, or whatever. Self 2 is our non-conscious doing self, and it is the part of us that Self 1 is giving the commands to. You could call Self 1 your conscious mind and Self 2 your body. Now, the interesting thing about Self 2, our body, is that it understands vivid pictures and images better than it does words. It's similar to a computer in that it understands a particular programming language. However, the programming language of Self 2 is not MS-DOS or Windows 95, but rather vivid visual images. Self 2 is a very competent servant, and it accurately follows the precise instructions given to it in its language. However, most people try to program Self 2 with words. They verbally command their body to do something without having a clearly visualized and precise picture of exactly what they want to happen. But it just doesn't work effectively. It's a bit like talking to someone in a foreign language. If I said to you, "Öffnen Sie das Fenster bitte," would you know what I wanted you to do? It's just the same when you talk to your body. It just doesn't understand the words you use. The way to command or program your body effectively is to use vivid images, particularly images associated with strong feeling, or what I call feel-images. This concept is supported by comments from champion sportspeople. Jack Nicklaus has said, "I never hit a shot, even in practice, without having a clear, in-focus picture of it in my mind." Greg Louganis, after hitting his head on the diving board in one of his dives in the 1988 Olympics, was asked by one of the television crews if he wanted a copy of the dive to see where he went wrong. He refused, saying he didn't even want to consider the possibility that Greg Louganis could hit his head on a diving board. So you want to have a positive focus, and you want to communicate with your body in a way that it understands, by giving it clear, vivid images. It could be said that your level of performance is directly related to the level of your communication and the level of trust you can establish between your Self 1 and Self 2. Stop the tape for a moment and think about how this relates to you and your sport now. Why visualization works. There is overwhelming scientific and anecdotal evidence which demonstrates the undeniable fact that visualization can improve your sports performances. I gave some statistics in the first Sportsmind tape on how the use of visualization had improved basketball performance, and there are numerous other studies which have shown its effectiveness. In my own research, the feedback I've received from athletes is that they improved their performance from 10 to 50%. I'd like to share one other famous example of the power of visualization with you. Colonel George Hall was captured by the Vietnamese in the war and incarcerated in a POW camp for 7 years, 5.5 years of which were spent in solitary confinement. Prior to the war, Colonel Hall was a golfer playing off a handicap of 4, and to keep himself from going crazy in prison, every day he would visualize a round of golf. He would play each shot and each hole in his mind, and every day he'd play a different golf course. When he was finally released and returned to the United States, shortly afterwards he was invited to play in a celebrity Pro-Am tournament. And despite being underweight and suffering from malnutrition from his ordeal, he hit a round of 76, right on his handicap, despite not having held a club in his hands for over 7 years. Visualization works, but do you know why? It works because visualization has a measurable physiological effect on our body. When you visualize doing a movement, play, stroke, shot, or performance, there is a measurable response by the specific muscles used in that activity in response to your imagined movements. For instance, in order to do a tennis serve in reality, a specific program of neuromuscular circuits has to fire in order for that to happen. However, if I just vividly imagine doing a tennis serve, it's been found that micromuscular stimulation occurs in those same muscles used to do the serve in reality. In fact, neurologically, your body can't tell the difference between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. You consciously know one experience is real and the other is imagined, but at the cellular level, your body can't tell the difference. For example, think of the last time you had a nightmare. And now think of a time you had a fright in reality. Was the fear you experienced in the dream any different from the fear you experienced in response to the real event? It wasn't, was it? Your heart still pounded the same and your hands still felt the same clamminess. Likewise, have you ever jerked your arm up in a dream in response to the imagined events? It was only a dream, but your body still responded like it was real, didn't it? Because there is this muscular response to visualized activity, it makes it possible to program in desired strokes, shots, plays, movements, behaviors, and even emotional responses prior to doing them. In other words, you can groove in to your body at a cellular level a muscle memory of what you want your body to do. Further, visualization allows you to practice your techniques perfectly, without error, and so groove in the optimum neural pathway for future successful performances. Optimum state for successful visualization. In order to make the visualization exercises that you do work most effectively, it's important to first put yourself into an optimum mental state for visualization. In previous tapes, I've called this optimum state downtime, but another name for it is reverie, and it occurs in that transition state between sleeping and waking. In the reverie state, your limbs become heavy and relaxed, your emotions are calm, and you experience a dreamlike state where you are conscious, yet able to visualize and imagine scenes and events vividly. It could be described as a conscious dreaming or controlled dreaming state. It's been suggested that this reverie state has been responsible for all our scientific, literary, and artistic creativity and inspirations. Psychologists believe that in the reverie state, left and right brain symbiosis occurs. Our normally predominant logical left brain quietens down and allows our more creative, intuitive right brain to become more active in consciousness. Recent scientific studies describing how the brain functions have reinforced the importance of inducing this reverie state prior to visualization. These studies have shown that our brain generates electrical pulses known as brainwaves, and to date, 4 major types of brainwaves have been identified: beta, alpha, theta, and delta. Each type of brainwave is associated with a different type of mental activity in the brain. Beta is associated with logical, analytical thinking. Alpha with relaxation and daydreaming. Theta with meditation and the reverie state, and delta is associated with deep, dreamless sleep. Now, the significance of this is that recent research in the United States has shown that when athletes are trained to maintain the theta or reverie state, they are able to program in desired physical movements, plays, shots, strokes, behaviours and reactions much more quickly, and they achieve a higher standard of physical performance much faster. Of course, as I've mentioned in all the previous Sportsmind tapes, this is precisely the purpose of the relaxation exercises. To put yourself into an optimum mental state where you're able to visualize much more effectively. And you can achieve this with regular and consistent practice.